Take it away.
Okay, this is our Haggadah series, and it's really well timed because this session is right before our Passover Seder, which is this week. And then we have two more after. And this is very appropriate because the liberation story that's told year after year in the Passover story is always a story that was, that is, and that will be. Always. It's a story of what happened, what is happening, and what will happen. So we're kind of spanning the actual Seder here. And we're going to start with our Torah learning prayer together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok divrei Torah. Thank you for inspiring us to be lifelong learners, delving deep into Torah. Amen. Okay. I'm going to start class today by sharing a quote, and I have another quote later, that I first learned way back in rabbinical school when I took an entire semester on the Haggadah. We would spend 3 hours a week with lots of homework in addition, learning about the Haggadah. And my teacher was Rabbi Brian Walt, who went on to found our Reconstructing Judaism sibling congregation, Mishkan Shalom. He was a couple of years ahead of me in rabbinical school, a real star of this era of Judaism. I'll just say one more sentence about him, and I want to honor him as I share with you the quote he started our process with. Very, very important Haggadah quote. At the time, he was the rabbi of Beth Israel in Media. This was years and years ago, it was in the 1980s. And he said Palestinians and Jews should speak with each other. And the board had a vote of no confidence and fired him. So he left the congregation with half the people in it and started Mishkan Shalom, which is a very thriving congregation that actually just updated its Israel-Palestine kind of letter of agreement through a year-long process. Anyway, so things are moving. There's lots to be said, but I want to honor him now, and I'm going to try to screen share this because with the lovely help of Claude, which I use now instead of Chat GPT, I was able to make this beautiful slide, which hopefully is now going to share. I am screen sharing. Participants can see my screen, but are we
Don't
seeing
only
the right
seeing,
thing here?
no, we're only seeing a
No?
tiny little strip of the top of your computer screen.
Oh, no, no. Okay. Ah, yeah,
Now
yeah.
it went,
This is not what I want. So I don't want this. This is my outline, but what I want is a whole different slide. How do I get there?
okay, stop. I'll
Ah,
walk you
yeah,
through
yeah.
it. Stop sharing. Stop
Stop
the
share.
share.
Okay, stop sharing. I somehow
And
didn't
then,
choose the right slide.
right. So click on share.
Share.
And then what options do you have?
I want this, but I want it to be big. It's not showing up big.
When you
Ah,
look
yeah,
at it
yeah.
on your screen, what
It's on my,
size is it on your
oh my
screen?
goodness. This is so annoying. I'm going to try one more time here. And if I can't do this, I'm just going to teach oh, okay. I think this might work now. Yeah, this is the thing. So how, it's here. So why can't I just share it with you? Share.
You're seeing it full size when you just open it.
Can you turn it up?
I mean, it's full size on my screen. So is
And when
this
you
going
share
to
it, it should share full size.
share? Ah,
There we
okay, we got it. I'm
Whew.
sorry, I'm a low-tech rabbi, folks, but with the help of Claude, hopefully this is going to go well. So, what we have here is a very central and important um, quote that is in most Haggadahs, and it actually is in the Mishnah and the Talmud, which is how it got into the Haggadah. And you see it in Hebrew, and you see it in transliteration, and you see it in English. So this is the kind of sentence from our tradition that it is worthwhile memorizing and carrying with you. So I'm going to spend a minute here. V'chol hamarbe l'saper b'yitziat Mitzrayim, harei ze meshubach. Let's break this down. Yitziat Mitzrayim is the leaving of Egypt. You can hear the word Mitzrayim, b'yitziat Mitzrayim, in the leaving of Mitzrayim, in the leaving of the very dark, stuck, narrow place, Mitzrayim. V'chol hamarbe, anyone who expands in telling the story of Yitziat Mitzrayim, harei ze mishubach. This is fantastic. They're praiseworthy. It's wonderful. It's a great thing. So however much we expand in the telling of the story of the Exodus from Mitzrayim, it's super. This is a sentence to carry with you. So I invite you to repeat it after me, phrase by phrase. V'chol hamarbe
Bechol
Hamarbe.
Hamarbe
l'saper
Saper
b'yitziat Mitzrayim,
Yitziat Mitzrayim
harei ze meshubach.
Harei ze Mishubach.
This is the kavanah for what we are going to do today. We are going to expand on our understanding of the story of how we tell the story, the Haggadah, about Yitziat Mitzrayim. Let's do it one more time. We'll do the whole sentence. V'chol hamarbe
Bechol
Yitziat Mitzrayim, harei ze meshubach. V'kol hamarbe l'saper b'Yitziat Mitzrayim, harei ze meshubach. Okay, I'm going to stop the share and we're going to do the deed now. We're going to expand on the story of Yitziat Mitzrayim. And I have one other essential quote on a different slide created by Claude for a little bit later in. Overview of the Haggadah. So Haggadah, as you probably know by now, means the telling, because we are commanded lehiga tati, lehiga atati, tell this story. And so the Haggadah is the telling. But you might wonder, why have we seen so many different kinds of Haggadah? We've seen many different versions of the telling. And that's because ultimately there's not a prescription for exactly how you tell the story, or like even what story you tell. But what there is a structure to how you tell the story. And we're going to look at two different internal scaffoldings of the Haggadah today. The other interesting overview comment about the Haggadah is that it was not created even in ancient times as one thing that you could just transmit through the generations. It's a patchwork, because like with so much of Judaism, there's layer upon layer. There's always an agricultural layer in our rituals and traditions, because originally the Jews were sort of moving from being nomads to being farmers during the biblical era. We were nomads for the 40 years in the wilderness, tending sheep and goats and nourishing ourselves probably on their milk and their meat. But when we settled in the land of Canaan, we became farmers. And that was the biblical era, which is about 1000 BCE. The Exodus was not a historical event, but if you were going to at all try to date it, you would say it happened around maybe 1200 BCE. And then we were in the wilderness, and the Torah was an oral tradition, from Mount Sinai on. So we've got about 1000 years of Torah being an oral tradition. It's written down in about 400 BCE, and then it becomes a codified text. But during all of that time, how we lived, the economy was agricultural. So there's always an agricultural level. And sure enough, in the Haggadah, there is a deep agricultural basis to the Haggadah. It's spring, there's new birth, it's planting season. Even there's the earliest harvest where you bring your very first fruits of the new year. And this works its way into the actual text of the Haggadah and also the ritual of the Haggadah. That's the agricultural level. Then, of course, in Judaism, there's always a historical level, because as we reenact these rituals, we're actually teaching each other and the next generations and future posterity what our stories are, what our history is. Where did we come from? What do we aspire to? That's the history piece of it. We've got that deeply woven into the Haggadah text itself. And then the next layer that's part of most Jewish rituals all through the calendar year, not just the Passover Seder, is the ethical level. We're layering agricultural, historical, ethical. So in the Seder, you're probably familiar with some of the great ethical commands. Let all who are hungry come and eat. That's not exactly agricultural, it's not historical, it's a moral message. Make room at the table for all who are hungry. And throughout the Seder, there also are some other ethical practices. So we see these layers when we look at the Haggadah. And every year, every group of people is free to choose to tell those three layers of the story in different ways. You could make it totally contemporary, about being on an earth today that needs to be cared for and not overheated and destroyed. You could tell it with ethical statements for today, and you've seen every year people put new and different things on the Seder plate to tell the ethical story of the moment. This year we will continue to put the orange on our Seder plate, which has come to stand for marginalized peoples. And there is an origin story, but it's even expanded from that. And we will put olives on our Seder plate to speak to the shared land that many peoples love in Palestine. So, because the olive harvest is the symbol of the love for that holy land. But every year, one year people put locks and keys because it was a decarceration year where there was a lot of focus on that. I wouldn't be surprised if immigration, I haven't seen anything like this, but I bet you there are immigration symbols going on to Seder plates this year. So you can add anything you want. You're supposed to expand the story, right? We know from our quote. So you've got this sort of invitation to tell a story in some way that you want to tell it, that has to do with the Yetziat Mitzrayim, the leaving of Egypt, the liberation story. You get to do it. So that could be kind of overwhelming and like how do I do it? And so we actually get some real scaffolding from our tradition. There are two different kinds of scaffolding that give you a structure for how you're going to do the telling. You're commanded to tell the story. And then it's left wide open, like what exact story? How are you going to tell it? And so we are given the scaffolding. And I'm going to talk about, there's kind of two different scaffoldings. And whoever's leading the Seder has to figure out how to mesh them because they're two independent, different scaffoldings. And they're both in every Seder. And so, one of my jobs as the leader of our Seder is to weave together these two kind of rubrics that end us up with a Seder. So I'll start with the first one because it's very easy to see, which is the order of the Seder. A Seder means order. You can hear Seder, Sidur, the literal word means order. Whether you're talking about the Seder ritual or the Sidur, which is our prayer book, the word means order because it's an ordering of an experience. If you're used to Kabbalat Shabbat, you're kind of drawing from the resource of a Sidur, the order, but you're kind of probably used to candle lighting and then singing Lecha Dodi and then calling us to worship and then we get to the Shema and then we get to the Amidah and we kind of end with the Aleinu and Kaddish. There's a pattern there because it's an ordering. But what we do with each of those prayers is kind of wide open. There's some traditional text. We could say Shema Yisrael, or we could Or like for the Baruch, we could do as we bless the source of life. Like we get to decide how we live into each of those ordering steps. But the overall service is a flow, it's a certain order. That's from the Siddur for prayer services. And for the Seder is actually an order. It's a kind of rubric or scaffolding. And within that order, you get to do a lot of kind of improvisation, creativity, making it meaningful for today. Now, in our Seder at Lev Ha'ir, we always chant through the order. I don't know who has a Haggadah in front of you. I had given a link so you could get a traditional one, or you might have a traditional one on your shelf from your earlier years. But in our community, we use this one, and this order goes way, way back to very ancient times, and it's in every Haggadah and every Seder, I imagine. I can't really imagine a Haggadah that didn't have this order in it. And it will be very familiar to you when I pull it up in my Haggadah, because you've probably heard it many times. We chant, Kadesh Urchatz, Karpas Yachatz, Magid Rotza, Mahotzi Mahatza, Maror Korech, Shulchan Orech, Tzafun Barech, Hahalel Nirtza. That's the order of any Seder. I'm going to talk about what these things mean, but there should be 15 of them. I didn't count them right this minute, but there should be 15 steps of creating a Seder. And as you can see, sort of in the middle of it is Shulchan Orech, which is the feast. So you can kind of, as we chant through it, if you're wondering, when are we going to eat? Like my cousins used to always sit at the Seder. The only thing they cared about was, when are we going to eat? So, you're going to get to Shulchan Orech sooner or later. And that actually means the set table. It's the feast. So the very first one is Kadesh. It's the blessing over wine or grape juice. And then going through that kind of launches you into your various blessings. But there it is as the first step out of these 15. And then you've got a hand washing, but without a prayer. It's just sort of part of what happens in this order of the Seder is like intentionally weird things that wouldn't have happened at an ordinary dinner in ancient times. And the purpose of this weird order was to get the kids to say, why is this night different from all other nights? So if you want to see what people actually did for a meal in ancient times, don't look to the Seder. Because in ancient times, you would do the Kiddush, go wash your hands with a real washing, and come back and do motzi. And that's still today, the practice in the Jewish community. You do your Kiddush of the blessing over the wine or grape juice. Whoever wants to washes their hands, and the custom is not to speak during that washing hands time. It's a quiet time. And then you come together, you bless the bread. That would be the routine, ordinary order or Seder. In modern times, we do all sorts of things. We raise our hands, we wash hands in creative different ways. But really in the old days, it was a very specific thing that every single meal, every family did. So the kids gathered around, the grandkids gathered around. They were really used to it. You do your Kiddush, you wash your hands, you bless the bread. So in this order, which is the standard Seder order, you bless the grape juice or wine, and then you do a hand washing, but with no prayer? That's weird. The kids are supposed to say, what up? Why is this night different from other nights? And the next thing in it is all of a sudden you're dipping a green in salt water. It's karpas. You take your greens and you dip them into the tears of the slaves, like the green of renewal and hope and rebirth, and you're dipping it. And the kids are like, what? This is not what we do at dinner. Why is this night different from all other nights? So the whole purpose of this order is to be disruptive. So it's in some ways it's not intuitive. But then the next thing is yachatz, where we break the middle matzah, and the middle piece of the matzah becomes the missing matzah, the afikomen. And it's stolen or hidden. Every family has its own tradition for that. And again, it's very engaging for the next generation. The whole purpose of the Seder is to let you do your mitzvah of telling the story to the next generation. Because you are commanded to tell this story. And to expand upon the story even of leaving Egypt. So we've got so far this very weird sequence of events. The kids are all paying a lot of attention and kind of wondering what's going on. And the missing matzah gets hidden, which is very engaging, of course, to the young ones to go have to do the search, and the Seder can't finish until the search is done. But the very next thing that happens starts answering all these questions, which is the telling of the story, the magid. So the magid, it means basically the story, is a very important part of the Seder. But it doesn't specify what story you tell or how you tell it. You just have to tell the story somehow in your own way. This is the scaffolding. And then we carry on with more weird rituals, like, we're going to eat bitter herbs, and we're going to make a little sandwich of the sweet and the bitter, the Hillel sandwich, and we're going to have a feast, and then we're going to sing lots of songs. And so all of this is an order, but it's a weird order, and it's the standard order. So if you ever wanted to create your own Haggadah, you would go by this order. You would know exactly step by step what kind of chunks of the Seder you needed to put together to lead a Seder. So you'd have to start with the blessing over wine or grape juice. You'd have to have a hand washing. There's a second hand washing later in the order that is with a prayer. So, when we're doing a short Seder, because they used to last, 7 hours, like they used to be. Some families still do that. I've been to 7-hour Seders. But, when you're doing it actually with real kids or with a community that has to catch the bus to go home or whatever, we don't do a 7-hour Seder. So we kind of truncate some things. Instead of 2 hand washings, one with a blessing, one without, we will have 1 hand washing. And, so we kind of make it work for our community. Because as Mordechai Kaplan, our founding Reconstructing Judaism creator, said Judaism should be for the Jews rather than the Jews for Judaism. So we make it work for our community, and that's the right thing to do in any home or in any community. So I want to stop there and go to Community View and see if anybody has a question about this first form of scaffolding that I just outlined, which is the order of the Seder. Question or comment? And let me ask you this, has anybody ever attempted to use the ordering of the Seder to create their own Haggadah? Has anybody ever made your own Haggadah based on this flow of events? Faith, yes? Great. Okay. Super. Anybody else? We have so many people in the Zoom room, I can't see everybody at once, but
Susan Ross has her hand up.
Susan Ross, have you
Yes,
made your Haggadah?
I didn't actually do it, but my son-in-law's grandmother created the entire Seder, the entire Haggadah. She wrote an entire Yiddish Haggadah, and we had Yiddish Seders.
Wow. Okay, that is wonderful. And I've made many Haggadahs over the years because sometimes I made them with the children's things from nursery school, or sometimes I made it for a social justice issue that we wanted to focus on in a given year. Yeah. So if you ever did decide you wanted to make your own Haggadah, you've got a great tool here, the order of the Seder. And you can fill it in with however you want to expand on the story of leaving Mitzrayim. So that is the first rubric that I wanted to share with you. So anybody else have a comment or question at this point? Drew, are you raising your hand?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not done a Haggadah, but I was just at a class this week that the presenter, she told the story that she's got two daughters-in-law who are not Jewish, and the children are being raised sort of not so sort of Jewish. So she wrote her own Haggadah for people who are not Jewish and tells the story, but in a little bit different way. And it's called The Essential Haggadah. And so she published it, and it's done very well, apparently. But so it's for blended families.
No, there's a national organization. It's now called 18 Doors. It used to be called interfaithfamily.com. And they collect resource banks of that kind of thing. They have wonderful resources for interfaith families. So Drew, if you have a way of, submitting that to 18 Doors, or if she'd like to, it's like the number 18doors.org. And I do some work with them just to support that work, but it's making those kinds of wonderful resources available to families that might not know how to tell the story of the leaving of Egypt, but they want to do it. That's beautiful. Okay, there's also there's every possible kind of a Haggadah you could imagine. I remember the musical ones also for kids that go like, bang, 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 bang your hammer low. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Just like singing the little kids through the story so that they stay focused on what you're trying to transmit there. Okay, so that was one rubric for how, the inner workings of a Haggadah. Now we're going to look at a different rubric, and we're going to pay a lot of attention to this one. But first, I want to screen share my second quote. So I'm really wishing myself well here. Okay, let's see if it's what's right here. What is this? Let me see if this is it. No, it keeps going back to this. Bobby.
Well,
It's not. Okay, let me try again because I have it up on my screen.
okay. Then when you click on share, then that's what you have to select from that
This is the
window.
one I want right here. Can you guys see it? Yeah. Can you see it?
There you go. Yep.
Yay. Okay. Everybody can see it? This is our second essential quote that you can carry with you that really defines the purpose of any Seder. It's the essence of a Haggadah, of the telling. B'chol dor vador, chayav adam lirot et atzmo, ke'ilu hu yatsa mi-Mitzrayim. And you will recognize the words dor vador from generation to generation. In every generation, it's upon us to see ourselves as though we personally left Egypt. And this is sort of talking about he, but B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa mi-Mitzrayim. And so the teaching here is not like you're reading an ancient text about an ancient story and let's sort of nicely remember that a long time ago this happened to some other people. It's to live this story right now. In every generation, we are leaving Egypt. So, like I started this class by saying, this is a story that was, that is, and that will be. So yeah, we're touching base with an ancient story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt. And we are reenacting it right now in our own lives. Like, isn't everybody in a dark, narrow place in some respect or other now, today? And how could you not be with the world we live in? If you just turn on the news, humanity is in a really stuck place, a really dire place right now on so many fronts. So we are living, this leaving of Egypt God willing, and we're living into the promise that there will be liberation. So it was, it is, and it will be. And this is the sentence that tells us we are doing this now. This is not some ancient lore. This is about you here today in every generation. So you can see, B'chol dor vador, in every generation. Chayav Adam. Adam is a human being. Lerot et atzmo ka'ilu, as if he is yatsa mi Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt. You can hear that same word from Yitziat Mitzrayim. Yatsa mi Mitzrayim, from Mitzrayim. So let's try it phrase by phrase. B'chol dor vador.
Salvador.
Chayav Adam.
Abedam.
Lerot et atzmo.
Wrote it Ashmo.
Ka'ilu.
Ilu.
Who yatsa mi Mitzrayim.
Yatsa Mimitzrayim.
B'chol dor vador. Chayav Adam lirot et atzmo. Ke'ilu hu yatsa mi Mitzrayim. And I will see if I can figure out a way to send you all these two slides. I really encourage people to, memorize these two sentences and carry them with you. The first sentence being about expanding the story of Egypt is always a good thing, of Mitzrayim, of the Yitziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus from Egypt. And the second one being, in every generation, we are living this. So now we're going to move on to the second kind of scaffolding. We talked about the order of the Seder, so that's one rubric to use as you kind of wend your way through the experience or create an experience for other people by using this order. The second order has to do with a pattern of the number 4 that is based on 4 quotes from the Torah about liberation. I'm going to share them with you. The entire scaffolding of the Torah, of the Haggadah, is built around these 4 liberation quotes. And not only that, we see recurring patterns of the number 4, starting initially with these 4 liberation quotes that I'm about to share, but then moving into others. So we see the 4, sons, or the 4 children, right? And we see we sort of see the number 4 as a building block. We see the 4 questions, but we're going to start with the 4 cups of fruit of the vine, because they each have one of these quotes attached to them. And the whole Seder starts with a blessing over wine or grape juice. That's the first of the 4 cups. In our practice at Levair, we always get the first 2 cups in there beautifully, but the second 2 cups are after the meal. So we always do them, but we don't really attend to them that much. The first 2 have a lot of sort of ritual woven around them before, during, after. The last 2, I always make sure to do the 4 cups, because it's kind of, that's what makes it a Seder, is you've got to do the 4 cups. It's, that's the scaffolding. But we're going to talk about these quotes. And I'm going to give you first the 4 Hebrew words. You don't need to remember the Hebrew words. I'm going to say what they mean in English. And if you have something to write with, you might want to jot down the one English word for each of these liberation quotes. And I'm going to say what that is. So the first quote is, in English, I will bring you out. The whole sentence is, I will bring you out from under the burdens of Mitzrayim. That's Exodus 6, line 6, sentence 6. So the verb is vahotzeti, and it means bring out. So you might want to write down in English the word or phrase, bring out. That is a promise God makes in the Torah to the Israelites who are ensconced in oppression in Mitzrayim. And God says, I will bring you out. And in the Seder, that gets attached to the first cup of wine. The second quote uses the Hebrew word vahitzalti, which means rescue. And it says, I will rescue you from bondage. I will rescue you from bondage. So that word is rescue. So you've got one verb, bring you out, rescue you. The third quote that the Seder is kind of built around is Viga'alti, which means I will redeem you. And the rest of the sentence is with an outstretched arm. It's very beautiful. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. That's the third liberation quote. And the word is redeem. And that gets pegged to the third cup of wine. And the fourth quote, the verb is velakakti, which means I will take you. And the whole sentence is, I will take you to be my people. Velakakti. So the verb is take. But it's more like kind of take in the sense of covenant. Like I take you like I would take a life spouse. I take you in this way, velakakti. And that gets pegged to the fourth cup. So you've got 4 liberation verbs now. And I'm going to ask you a question. And we can go to community view because I'm going to see if somebody has an answer to this question. Why do we need to have 4 different liberation quotes? I mean, really, you could probably have a lot more if you went through the entire Tanakh and just took out liberation quotes. Like, I can think of another one. I will lift you up on noble eagle wings. I love that one. That's not in this area. Why do we need more than one? Why can't we just have one liberation quote here?
Could it be because of the 4 sons?
So there's a guess that it could be because of the 4 sons. You want to see more? Like, how would it be because of the 4 sons?
Because there were 4, I don't want to say 4 families, but 4 people that were sent out. And if you think about it, when we speak about the women of the Torah, we speak in terms of 4, just as we speak in the sons in terms of 4.
Oh, Louise, you know what I really like about that is that one of the teachings about the 4 sons or 4 children is that different people learn in different ways. So you need to have many different ways of reaching the next generation. You're trying to do Lador Vador, trying to get this, sort of landed into the next generation so it can carry on. And one of the ways you do that is you use multiple modalities of communication because the different 4 children all learn differently. So I like that maybe there were 4 different ways of talking about liberation because there were many different kinds of learners. And you're kind of, so that's a nice connection, Louise. I never thought about that in connection to the four children. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, who else? Okay. Actually, let me look at the other half of this large Zoom room here. Anybody else want to take a stab at, like, why don't we just choose one great quote? Why do we need 4? That all kind of, in a way, have the same purpose. Well,
Enid has her hand up.
Who does?
Enid.
Okay, Enid, go for it.
Well, possibly because, like anything else, it needs repeating, and maybe repeating in different ways so that people will finally get the message.
I like that. It's very kind of pedagogically astute. Like any good teacher builds some redundancy into the teaching because it gives the learner more opportunities to kind of grasp what you're saying. I study every week with a Hasidic teacher, and then I work through the texts the next day with my Chavruta partner. And she is such a good teacher. And one of the things she just does is she constantly repeats herself, but she kind of weaves it in. So she kind of like is summarizing and then adding the next idea. And she's always like walking you through where you've been. And I hope I do that to some extent in my teaching as well, because I think that's that's great, Enid. That is a good teaching method, is to like you don't want to lose your learners, and it's hard to receive what people are trying to share because you're
Well,
not.
and you think of it, the whole 40 years supposedly in the desert was a learning and growing experience. And so at each point in that time, perhaps it needed repeating just to keep people on point.
Well, and not just in the desert. I mean, for all the generations since then, because
Right, right.
these
Well, yeah,
messages were
but I was
given
just
originally
thinking in
when they were
terms of,
in Egypt. Yeah,
right.
yeah, really true. Okay, so maybe it needed repeating in different ways. Sharon?
Um, yeah. Looking at each of the four, there seems to be a progress in them. Between the beginning is taking you out, which just is leaving Egypt. Rescuing you suggests some kind of an emotional reaction to that. I mean, it's not just physically leaving, but it's being, well, coming out in an emotional way. Redeeming, I think, is the same thing, that emotional sense of redeeming, but I think it may embody Jewish tradition more. It may be a deeper type of emotional leaving of Egypt. And then the final one, take you to my people, means, that there's now a type of close relationship between God and the people of Israel.
That is beautiful, Sharon. I was just going to ask everyone, taking your four words there, do you see a progression? Is it developmental in some way? Sharon just laid out one version of a developmental journey there. Does anybody have another version, starting with we've got, let's review the four words. We've got, I will bring you out, I will rescue you, I will redeem you with an outstretched hand or arm. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. And I will take you to be my people. So there's no one right answer, but clearly this liberation message is given four times with different words. So what is the progression there? How could you see that? Sharon gave us one possible interpretation. Diane.
Yeah, I don't think it's much different than Sharon's, but it seems like there's this building, a crescendo to the connection to God. So it's one thing to be taken out, but if you compare that or to the ultimate one, which is, and I will have my covenant with you, or you will be my people. One doesn't happen without the other. So it seems to me that these four are building blocks on each other to what would be perhaps the most sacred, from the physical or whatever
Yeah.
safety to the sacred union with God, something like that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I love that. Okay, anybody else want to try an interpretation of the sequencing of these four?
It seems like the redeem is almost an answer to defiance.
To defiance, did you say, Louisa?
Yes.
Same
So,
word.
like, while I will defy the Egyptian gods in your name, or the Egyptian rulers in your name, I will not defy you, but will you redeem me for the defiance of not listening to the people that are controlling us or trying to control us?
Oh, so there's like a forgiveness kind of, or
Yes.
unconditional kind of wrapping in, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Anybody else? Well, I was thinking about, earlier on, out of total oppression, just getting out matters a lot. And that's the first two, Vahotzeti, I will bring you out, and then Vahitzalti, I will rescue you. But that isn't anything about being in a mutual relationship covenant. Like, it's not saying you, as the Israelites, need to also have sort of rise up and take responsibility for creating the vision you want to see. It's all against the oppression, and I'm going to get you out of there. But you're not really free yet until you can imagine what you want to live into. And so that there's that sort of progressive journey from physical liberation, like I'm going to take you away from the whip and just get you out of the horrors, but then kind of developmentally into, well, what is the vision of who you want to be? Who are you becoming? And that's more the sort of the redeem has to do to me with something that's, it's like there's something of value there, like you're worth it. It's sort of saying you're not just anybody who needs to be free, but there's something special. I'm choosing you. You need to choose life. And then for the final one is really entering a covenant to be like partners with God in the work of creation. That's what the covenant is, basically, is that we're in it together. So it's kind of like saying this is enacting the concept that we're on a journey. That liberation didn't just happen, poof, it's all over and done with. But it was a journey. It was a developmental journey. And that really probably having some understanding that when people who have been enslaved get free, there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of healing that is needed. Like those people cannot just step out and create a good world for all. It's a process. It's a process of healing and recovering and growing into a new capacity that you wouldn't have had as an enslaved people. So it's a journey. It's developmental. It's layered. And again, there's no right or wrong way of interpreting it, but we notice the clue that there are 4 words used for liberation, 4 verbs, and we kind of wonder, well, why? And then we come up with interpretations. That's where Midrash comes from. Like each one of you just created a beautiful Midrash here, the people who responded to that question. You created a beautiful Midrash that you could get up and teach, because those were really great interpretations. And that is how Judaism works, is everything, whatever you start out with, you get layer upon layer of meaning that accrues to it, because we put ourselves into the story. And if we were going to say, well, right now, living this Yetziat Mitzrayim, this exodus from Egypt now in this world, where are we? Are we at verb number 1? Like we, just have to stop the horrors? Kind of save the lives? Well, that's really verb 1 and 2. Like, let's just get out of this mess and then we'll figure out what's next. Are we there? Or are we, what does it mean to sort of live into redemption now, even when there's terrible horrors happening on so many fronts? What does it mean to sort of build the world we want to see while we stop the horrors in this world today? Because we are living this story now. And I always think about that when I engage in various kinds of political work, that the way I do it is just as important as doing it. Like, am I interacting with people with respect and kindness? And are we, having solidarity with people? Are we being inclusive of many different kinds of people? Like, how we do the work is just as important as protesting something or calling for something. Because it's like we're building the new ways as we do it. And to me, that's that shift from let's just get out of the mess to let's do the redemption and covenanting piece. Like, who do we want to be? So, I would say that's where we are in the story, that we have to do the both and of integrating those 4 verbs. It can't just be one or the other. Because, when I look at this world, I see the old ways collapsing and falling, and I see that there is yet to be born something that we get to co-create step by step, and we don't know what it is exactly yet. And there's a certain amount of just hope and, active hope of that we hope that it will be true, and that we believe the liberation message that things can be different and things can be better. So we've got our second rubric of these 4 quotes and the number 4 as a building block that is also a way of scaffolding an entire telling of the story, the Haggadah. So when I, as the rabbi, create a plan for the Seder, I'm thinking about integrating both the 15, or at least a lot of top hits, of the order of the Seder with the 4 cups and the other 4s, which is also a different way of organizing things. You somehow want to end up with both. And they're 2 separate rubrics or 2 separate scaffoldings that somebody has to kind of integrate to actually create an experience. So let's kind of go back to community view here. I want to see if there are questions or comments here. I'm scanning the Zoom room. Questions or comments?
Enid has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead. Wait, Bobby, who?
Enid.
Enid, go ahead.
All right, I was just thinking, how do we incorporate the Seders when, we just ran through the Haggadah and did everything into what you're describing as a way of approaching it today?
Yeah. So, well, there's 2 ways of doing that. One is you've got your ritual moments that can be pretty open-ended. So if you think about it, when you're dipping the greens into salt water, a lot of times I think we've done actually dyads where people talk about what is giving you the hope of renewal, what are the tears of affliction for you. Just even in a couple sentences each, but you're putting yourself now into the story of those ritual possibilities. Also, pretty much any ritual moment, like the Maror, the plagues is another great ritual moment. We add our own voices in for contemporary plagues. So the one way of doing it is to engage with the rituals, but make them relevant to this moment. And the other way of doing it is you have the whole Magid section, which is the telling of the story. And in that space, you can tell any story of any Yetziat Mitzrayim. So you could tell any leaving of Mitzrayim. It doesn't have to be the ancient Pharaoh and the Israelite slaves. It could be the story right now of people leaving drug gangs and violence in Central American countries and trying to be refugees somewhere. And what's that story?
I understand that. I was thinking more in looking back at the traditional Seder that I grew up in, not necessarily knowing what everything meant, and bringing that a little bit of what that tradition was and what they were like, and updating, I don't know, in terms of today, so that young people today, family, understand a little bit more about within family tradition, what it was. I'm not sure if I'm getting my point across.
I mean,
but
what you're doing of trying to transmit this to the next generation is exactly on point. And it sounds like you're asking how best to do that in a given situation.
Yeah, I mean, I there was something, even when we didn't know and the men rambled on, there was still something about it that had meaning. So how does one transmit that? I know we can get into all of how we update it. That I understand.
Yeah. Well, I think the Seder has something special going for it in that, look, the family does not gather from far and wide with friends often for a feast. Like, that's noticeable and special. Just that fact. If you did no ritual, but you said, oh, it's spring and it's Passover and we're going to have dinner together. And everybody takes the trouble to kind of come together and there's a beautiful table and there's delicious food and people talk and connect. That's memorable. If you did anything else, like have a box of matzah on the table, you know what I mean? And so it's like you can build, but just Judaism gives you an awful lot to start with just through the connection of the people. Bobby.
So I've been to Seders in recent years. One which was just adults, and one was families, was my extended family with children. And at both of them, they brought in props.
Uh-huh.
Like when they talked about the plagues, they brought in, plastic frogs, different things. And to me, that was just, I don't remember doing that as a child. And it just made it more fun, and I'm hoping it made it more memorable.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely, for the adult Seder, it definitely made it fun. It
I'm
really
sure it's
brought it
memorable.
home.
Like when you have little
Yeah,
toy frogs leaping around your table, the kids are going to remember that,
yeah,
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um, Anne, you can unmute.
One of the ways we did something different when our son was little, since he was such a bouncing bean, and we wanted him to remember it. So he acted out the 10 plagues. And I could remember him, okay, Liam, wild beasts, boils, ouch. And it would go on. And as he got older, he still, when we did the first Seder with our new daughter-in-law, we made him act out the 10 plagues. And he still does a great wild beast. But it was something we put in and became part of our family.
That's fantastic. And you're kind of also resonating with the earlier point that people learn and engage in different ways, and you have to meet your particular situation. Like you knew your son. You knew it would be good for him to like jump around and have a part. And so, you spoke to what was actually there in your home and room. I remember the year that Obama was first running for president. We always do, my family does a Seder with a different set of family friends, and both families have a lot of kids. And Rosie was a young teenager and organized all the younger children to leave Egypt, but with the slogan, "Yes, we can, si se puedo." I still have like pictures and memory in my mind of like these little Mitzrayim refugees leaving with their Obama signs saying, "Yes, we can." And it's, so like acting it out in different ways. Sharon, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, when I think about the Seder, and the message that I got was, I think it's the sentence that comes after the ones that you just quoted, that if God had not redeemed me from Egypt, then I and my children, my children's children would still be slaves in Egypt.
Mm,
And that resonated with me as a child.
mm,
And I really connect all of my commitment to progressive causes, and particularly to civil rights, to that
wow.
we have something in common with Afro-Americans, because we were slaves in Egypt and they were slaves in the United States, and that we have to work, that our purpose on earth is to act out that liberation, to do what we can. But I'm also thinking more recently that, it's occurred to me that the Second World War didn't have to come out the way it did.
Mm,
That if America hadn't joined the war, or whatever things happened that caused us to win that, we could be living in a world that was dominated by that Nazi ideology, or maybe not living. I mean, maybe we would not have survived that even in this country.
yeah.
But I think, in a very real way, the lesson is that we can't take our freedom and our opportunities for granted. That they happened, and we have, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't take it from there.
coming right off of the No Kings.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that we're going through the same thing again now, in a sense.
Really powerful. And I think that's an interesting activity at a Seder, is to have your people scan the Haggadah or just remember from their past experience. And just like Sharon shared, what is a sentence that sticks with you or speaks to you maybe this year even? We love you, Beverly. Goodbye. Good to see you. Um, what is that's an interesting conversation. Like if you're structuring a Seder where you're sort of in leadership, that's an interesting conversation. Like what sentence from this Haggadah speaks to you? Or what message from an earlier experience of a Seder, maybe from childhood, stuck with you, like Sharon just shared a sentence.
If I can go to another subject entirely, my experience as a child was two Seders. My grandparents' Seder, which was very traditional with the little tiny books from the wine companies.
Yeah.
That all had the same text, although the books were slightly different in their dimensions. But and then our second Seder that my parents had, and my father was very interested in Reconstruction Judaism and Mordecai Kaplan. And we had the Mordecai Kaplan Haggadah, where he took out all the references to God because he was into Judaism without supernaturalism. And I know that my brother and I would say, oh, he took out all the good parts because we used to like to, do all those things with the plagues and everything. The plagues were not in it, in his Haggadah. Are you?
Wow.
No one, apparently Reconstructionist Judaism has left that tradition entirely.
Reconstructing Judaism has now reconstructed the Reconstruction, because I think sometimes Mordecai Kaplan went too far and because he was meeting his moment when people were just coming out of the kind of old world superstition and, kind of ancient practices that didn't actually speak to people today. And he tried to overcorrect, and some of those corrections worked and some didn't. And they've been now sort of but like an example, actually, I think of a place where Mordecai Kaplan was very opposed to chosenness, to the whole concept of chosenness, and actually changed a lot of the prayers to get rid of the sentence that says the Jews are chosen from all among other people. And I think some of those are failed corrections. Like the concept's really great, like Jews are chosen with all other people, but the actual corrections in the prayer never really took. I don't know how many of you, when you come up to the Torah, we say the Reconstructing Judaism version of the Aliyah prayer. But for how many people is that intuitive, or how many people still say Bachar Banu, which is we were chosen from? I mean, and I'll tell you, in the long Kiddush, which we do on Friday nights, he changed a sentence. I still, after like 40 some years of rabbi, I cannot remember the new sentence. If I'm looking at a book, I can stick it in, but I just, And actually, Reb Zalman came up with a different correction that works much better, which is just change, we were chosen from Bachar Banu mi kol ha'amim to we were chosen with Bachar Banu im kol ha'amim. You change one letter and you get rid of the chosenness concept. So that's kind of what I feel comfortable doing. Bachar Banu im kol ha'amim. We were chosen and all people are chosen. We're chosen with all other people. But anyway, that's a discourse on Reconstructing Judaism's development, but it's all good because you're supposed to reconstruct the Reconstruction. That's the nature of the beast. It all keeps moving along. Okay, so I want to offer you one more interpretation of that second scaffolding of the 4 quotes about liberation. And this one is, there's just many different ones. There's no right or wrong one, but it is that. So the quote is, I will bring you out from under the burdens of Egypt. And the interpretation is, God first eases unbearable suffering. You have to stop that first. Liberation begins not with miracles, but with making life livable again. And freedom begins with acknowledging dignity. So there's that material level and the respect for the human being. The second one, I will rescue you. God dismantles the structure of enslavement itself. This is the Hitzalti, I will rescue you from bondage. And this is speaking to systemic intervention, freedom from control, not just pain, like changing the system that keeps oppressing people. The story of slavery must be told before freedom can be claimed, and that's because the Magid is attached to that second cup. So you're telling the story connected to the second cup. In other words, like in political work, we talk about having a narrative of change. Like, what's your narrative of change? You have to be telling a story that speaks to people if you want to change anything. You can't just say Trump's an authoritarian, we don't like him. Like, what is the story you're telling? You're telling a story of democracy thriving. You're telling a story of everyone being able to vote. You know, you're telling some story. You have a narrative. You have a Magid. So that's that. And then the Gialti is the one that's I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. God confronts empire openly using public dramatic force. Redemption here is political and cosmic, and it's about the transformation. And that it can be, you know, it takes effort and work. Redemption is costly and transformative. It's not necessarily gentle. I'm not talking about violence. I'm just talking about you got to put yourself into it and build it and make it happen. And then fourthly, Velikakti, I will take you to be my people and I will be your God. That freedom is completed only through covenant. Like liberation is not really ultimately aimlessness, but it's about belonging, accountability, responsibility. And as you live into that, true freedom culminates actually at the end of the Seder. There's Hallel, which is all of our collection of songs of praise. True freedom culminates in gratitude, meaning, and praise. And so that's kind of a final set of interpretations. So now you have your two rubrics. You've got the order is the 15 steps of a Seder, and you've got your 4 liberation quotes that so much is scaffolded around, including the Magid goes with one of them, and the Hallel, songs of praise, goes at the end. And I think we will turn back now, unless anybody has a burning comment. Sharon, I don't think your hand is really supposed to be up there. Did you mean to have your hand up there? Sharon?
No.
No, okay. So does anybody have a closing question or comment? Because I want to go back to our 2 quotes, our 2 essential quotes here before we end. And then I believe the Zoom room is staying open for some just freewheeling discussion for 15 minutes following class. Is that true, Bobby and Diane, I think, today?
That's fine.
Yeah.
There was nothing formal about that, Rabbi. I don't know that ever really, became part of the structure.
Okay, well, I think
But I can keep it open. It's no problem.
let's do it for today, and the class will be over. But if anybody wants to linger and connect and just, share what you're thinking about all this, you are welcome to. And let us see here. I am gonna see. Okay, we'll do this. Let's see here. We'll go back to our first quote here. Hopefully. Why doesn't it just do what I tell it to do here? It always goes to that. Try again. Come on. Here we go. Okay, is everybody ready? Can you see it? Yeah, okay. V'kol hamarbe l'saper b'yitziat Mitzrayim harei ze meshubach. Elaborating this story about the Exodus from Mitzrayim is so praiseworthy. Kol hamarbe l'saper b'yitziat Mitzrayim harei ze meshubach. Okay, and see if I'm going to share this with you, Bobby. Maybe you can get it to everybody somehow.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone with the link is going to be able to do it. Okay, and we're going to do our other one in just 1 second here. That first one's coming over to you, Bobby, and here we go with our second one. Let's see if this will work. Great, this is our one about the generations. B'kol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu hu
yatsa mimisrayim.
B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo Ke'ilu hu yatsa mi Mitzrayim. In every generation, a person is obligated to see their self as though we personally left Egypt. I'm changing the pronouns a little bit to be inclusive, but you can see. Dor vador. We're doing it now. We're doing it this week. It was, it is, and it will be. And in just a moment, we are going to sing our Torah song, but I just want to send this off to you too, Bobby. Hopefully you've got 2 slides now to share with everybody.
Okay.
Yay, thank you. Okay, let us close with our Torah learning song. And for our teachers and their students and the students of their students, we ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. Thank you all for coming. I hope that was a good taste of what's to come and will help deepen the experience for this week's Seders. And I will see you for our next class. I'll be able to hear you, but I'm going to go off screen, and this is an open-ended, just 15-minute time if anybody wants to stay in and talk to each other. And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi Julie.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Diane, thanks for the reminder about this 15 minutes. And if people stay on, I have a question maybe you can help me with. And
Sure.
that's
Want to stay on?
this is the first time that my son-in-law's mom is going to be at a Seder and my grandson's girlfriend, and I'm pretty sure neither one of them has been anywhere near a Seder. And I wondered if people have ideas of things I might tell them in advance or let just throw them into it, or how I can make them feel welcome. They will both be at our community Seder on Thursday night. My son-in-law's mom, I taught her the word machatana. She's going to be exposed to 3 Seders in a row. She lived in Barbados for a while. I think she's originally from Guyana. My grandson's girlfriend is from Colombia. So they're definitely bringing a richness into the Seder experience. And I wonder if anybody had any ideas.
Well, Evie?
I have so many.
Yeah.
Sorry, Enid. Go.
No,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Diane.
Well,
Sorry.
I think from my experience, it's great to have people participate. So even if everyone is given a section of the Haggadah to read, to participate in that way is, it just brings you into the fold. I think that one thing that my family likes to do is to say before questions in as many languages as one has experience speaking, and maybe there's experience there and not to make them feel uncomfortable. You could try Yiddish, everybody could try a different language so that they're not standing out, but that's participatory. And I think it'll flow naturally. The interest of everyone at your table will be to make sure that they're comfortable and that they understand what's going on. So I don't think, it'll just come naturally, I think.
Yeah. And I would add to that, I think that giving them a little advance notice or explanation about things that are so different at the Seder from just a regular dinner where family sits around eating just might be helpful, about the 4 cups of wine and why this is so important and things like that.
Remember the story.
No, I
I
mean, we've
think
had a lot of non-Jews at our non-Jewish people at our Seders, and everyone participated. And then along the way, we would explain what's going on. But the idea of pre-Seder preparation, maybe Evie just talk to Lila and speak with her and work out what she thinks and how it would be best to sort of prepare the those that are coming.
But, and one more thought is, as Rabbi taught, this is so much about us putting ourselves into this story today.
Right.
Everybody has a liberation story. So
Right.
without putting them on the spot, if there could be an opportunity for each person at the table to speak about moments of that in their lives and or how meaningful it is for them now in contemporary life in Philadelphia, wherever they live. So, I think making it relevant that way through the story of a liberation, the concept of it.
Yeah.
I think since they are from warmer areas or Sephardic areas, and if you're doing an Ashkenazi type Seder, to try to explain some of the differences, that there are people that still eat beans and rice during Passover, but it is not a tradition of Eastern European or something to that degree. Or else even Google online about Ghana and Barbadian Jews and see if there are any traditions that they have that you want to incorporate into your Seder.
All good ideas.
I would like to, if I may, speak on the idea of liberation. I sent out a message to all the members of Lev Hayir yesterday about in that same regard, a wonderful event that's happening Monday afternoon at 3:00 at the 4th Street Quaker Meeting House on honoring Karl Lutz, who was the Swiss consul in Philadelphia in 1926 for several years. But the big thing is he was the vice consul in Hungary, in Budapest, during the Second World War. And although he wasn't Jewish and he was going totally against his government, he was responsible for liberating over 60,000 Jews from Hungary. And I think there's an exhibit. There will be a whole program. Carl Lutz's daughter, who is 88, so she's the vintage of many of us. And I had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with her yesterday. And she will speak. It's her life story is a very complicated one, but he's now righteous Gentile garden of righteous Gentiles in Yad Vashem. And there's so many of these stories we don't hear, but this is liberation by people that didn't have to. Or I can remember some of our non-Jewish friends who were going to the Soviet Union, and we were involved in Soviet Jewry, and asking them to take in things for Soviet Jews, putting them at risk at doing so, but they did it. And so I just wanted to, if you've seen that, if you have any questions, you can call me. It might be something very special too. It's the 100th anniversary of him being in this, having been consul here in Israel, in Philadelphia. So just wanted to throw that out about another liberation.
Anyone else? Okay, well, I look forward to seeing many of you on Thursday, along with many other people. It should be lovely.
Oh.
And have a good few days before then. And I guess I'll close this out now. Okay.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you
Bobby.
so much. We look forward to seeing everyone.
Right, Hag Sameach and decent Pesach to everybody.
Yes.
From David and from me.
Same to you.
Peace.